My name is Rocky Heron. I spent 31 years as a special agent for the DEA, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, trying to stop drug traffickers at the local, national, and international levels.
And this is us getting stuck in the piranha and alligator infested waters.
I saw too many beautiful people just like you lose their lives or the quality of their lives because they didn't understand the consequences of abusing drugs and alcohol. Today, I use those experiences as a basis for teaching young people like you the hard truth about what substance abuse will do to you and your dreams and your futures, hoping that some of you are listening and that some of you will make better choices. Drug dealers all over the world are looking for easier and cheaper ways to make stronger drugs they can sell to you for more profit. The most dangerous drug ever mass-marketed is fentanyl, the opioid drug that will be our topic for today. We'll start with a short history about the abuse of the opioid drugs, and you'll learn why they're causing so much pain and suffering. Throughout history, humans have abused opioids, starting with the drug opium. Opium is a chemical found in certain poppy plants, and even in its weak, natural form, opium was horribly addictive and ruined the lives of countless people throughout time. Wars were fought over it. And then 200 years ago, scientists learned how to create much stronger forms of opioids, such as morphine and heroin, which they used as super powerful pain medicines. Sadly, almost as soon as people began to abuse the opioid drugs, their terrible side effects were discovered. We learned that people become addicted to opioids very quickly. For most of the last 150 years, heroin has become famous for the harm and damage it causes to the people who use it. Your body will try to protect you from your bad choices. Your brain and your other organs will produce chemicals to clear those drugs out of your bodies, just like they would for any other toxic substances. That means your body sort of gets used to these drugs, and you don't get quite as high. This is called tolerance, and it happens to people who use most drugs, but particularly to those who abuse opioids. So the people use more of the drug to feel the same high, and the body produces more chemicals in a reaction to get rid of those opioids. Tolerance happens even in medical situations, and doctors have to be very careful with it. People who take drugs for fun have no idea what they're doing to themselves. After a while, and for some people it happens very quickly, if you try to stop using the drugs, your body will continue to produce the chemicals it uses to fight the drugs. And those chemicals, without the drugs in the body, cause the person to feel a terrible sickness that is called withdrawal syndrome. It causes pain, anxiety, fear, nausea, all sorts of unpleasant stuff. Instead of using the drugs to get high, the person uses the drugs to just be, quote, normal and not feel withdrawal sickness. I have met many people over my life who took crazy amounts of drugs and didn't even get high. They just did it to avoid the sickness. That's a horrible way to live. Ever since morphine was invented, scientists have tried to invent new forms of opioid drugs that can help people with pain and be safer to use. Hydrocodone, sold most commonly as Vicodin, and oxycodone, sold most commonly as Percocet, became widely prescribed in America. These drugs are manufactured with other drugs like Tylenol or aspirin to make them hard to abuse. But even so, people try to use them for the wrong reasons and get addicted and suffer. But that all changed in the mid-1990s. That's when the drug OxyContin was approved for sale in the United States. OxyContin is a very powerful and pure form of the drug oxycodone, and it very quickly proved to be one of the most addictive and dangerous drugs ever legally sold. Instead of taking the pills as prescribed, people would find ways to use them like heroin. I met many people who told me the first time they used Oxy, they felt addicted. They knew they would use it again. From the late 1990s until about 2015, OxyContin abuse was one of our most terrible drug problems in the US. People were spending huge money to get their hands on the oxycodone pills, and our overdose and addiction rates skyrocketed. These prescription pills were being obtained from pharmacies by fake prescriptions, theft from the pharmacies, and sadly, even with prescriptions from criminal doctors who prescribed them in exchange for money. As a DEA agent, I arrested 6 doctors who were doing this. The pills were expensive, and too often the people who abused them couldn't afford them. And sadly, they started selling drugs to be able to buy their own. Others, people who never would have bought street drugs like heroin, found out that their addiction was so severe that they became willing to use heroin instead of these pills from pharmacies. In about 2015, the drug cartels saw how much money Americans were spending to buy and abuse the prescription pills, and they wanted some of that money. They increased the amount of heroin they were selling, and they began to sell the pills too. Everything changed when the drug cartels in Mexico got in on the game of selling prescription pills. Instead of getting legitimate oxycodone and other opioid pills from pharmacies, they began to fake them, making them in Mexico to look exactly like they came from a pharmacy in the United States. The early fake pills were made from heroin, but quickly the cartels started making them from a different opioid drug, one much stronger and much more dangerous, fentanyl. Pharmaceutical fentanyl, which is used by doctors to conduct surgeries and to help people with cancer, is made to very precise scientific standards. It is a miracle drug that helps countless people every day. It is not the problem. The problem is illegally manufactured fentanyl made mostly in Mexico today, but also in some US illegal drug labs. That is what is destroying so many lives. Fentanyl causes the same effect in the body like heroin, the same high, the same addiction. But fentanyl is much stronger and can be 100 times as powerful as morphine. Fentanyl doesn't come from the opium poppy. It is a completely synthetic drug, meaning it comes just from nasty chemicals, and it is many hundreds of times more powerful and dangerous than the natural opium. It is so powerful, even the smallest mistake in the dosage and the users die, as their bodies simply stop breathing. The amount on this pencil is enough to kill me. Too many families in America have been devastated by the loss of a loved one to an overdose. More than 100,000 in just the last year. Fentanyl has made the situation so much worse. I'd like you to hear now from Rita and Dave Palet. They lost their son to a fentanyl poisoning.
I miss him terribly.
It was a nightmare. The worst day of my life. I found Jacob on his bed, and he was blue. So I ran to him, and he was cold, and I just, I knew it. It was any parent's nightmare just came true. When the police came, they were starting to assume that Jake had taken his life. And it wasn't until my nephew came in, who's a physician, and he went into the bedroom to see Jake, and he's the one who said, no, this is not suicide. And they found 2 other pills on his bedside. And now, knowing what we know now, they're the typical blue pills that you see that's typically laced with fentanyl. And they soon found out after they did the autopsy that my nephew was correct. The next day, my oldest son received a text from one of Jacob's good friends who said he got it off of social media asking for what he was looking at for something to sleep, a Xanax or something. Jake suffered from depression and anxiety, and my husband can share more about some of the ups and downs that he went through.
Life came easy for Jake. Jake was a great athlete. He was very funny. He was the center of attention. Jake was, 6'3", he was about 280 and strong as can be, but man, he had a huge heart. But when he hit a sense of depression around his freshman year of high school, he had trouble getting out of it. And a lot of it had to do, I would say, with social media. He used to say to me all the time, everybody's living a better life than me did. And he would look at, Instagram, for example, and I would try and explain to him, these are just people's highlights. Nobody's living a better life than you. Everybody has their ups and downs, and try to explain the roller coaster of life. And so the sad part is when you're down here, you don't know when you're going to go back up. But you enjoy the ride and know when you're going to go back up. You know, him and I would talk a ton, and he would say to me, you know, if I passed, nobody would even care if I was ever here. And I was, that's not the case. He says, nobody outside of you and Mom and my brother would show up to my funeral. Well, when Jake passed, it was an amazing outpour of people that showed up. It was standing room only. And the kid that thought nobody loved him was loved by so many in the community. And this was someone who, in a bad moment, reached out to somebody he didn't know through social media and grabbed a pill that had basically a few specks of fentanyl on it and took his life within seconds. The person as big as Jake couldn't survive that pill. As we tell his story, we hope we're saving lives because we know this is what Jake would want. Jake wouldn't want this for any other family. I have trouble going to sleep at night. I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing I think of. I'm sure for my wife it's the same thing. But it's like the alarm goes off and it feels like someone threw a bucket of ice water in your face. And it's devastating to know your child's not here. And I'm not doing well without my son. I miss him terribly. It's a bit devastating to me. And it doesn't matter that it's been almost 5 years. It feels like it happened 5 minutes ago.
The tragedy that struck the Palet family is happening far too many times every day in America. A young person goes online or finds some friend to sell them a pill that looks like a Vicodin, or looks like a Xanax, or looks like an Ambien, or looks like an Adderall. They take that pill and they die because it was actually a pill made from fentanyl. It's very important for you to know those fake fentanyl pills look exactly like they came from a pharmacy. And too many Americans are dying because they take what they think is a Vicodin or a Xanax or an Adderall or whatever they think it is, and they die because it turned out to be fentanyl. Almost 100% of the pills for sale on Snapchat or other social media or brought to the parties by your friends are fakes made in drug labs from fentanyl, all of them. If it did not come from a pharmacy in a prescription bottle in your name, you cannot take it. Fentanyl is also coming into the United States in a powdered form, and too many people are dying from using that because they think the white powder that they're using is cocaine or meth, and they end up dying because it was actually fentanyl. Now, some drug dealers are taking the white fentanyl and adding food colors. You know as well as I do that the reason they do that is to make it look attractive and to market it to young people like you. They know that simply making it look more attractive and interesting means more people will think it's safe and want to use it. It's a different world out there for you guys. The whole notion of drug experimentation or recreational drug use is over. You will never know what you or your friends are taking, and that choice might be your last. Look, when I was your age, I didn't have to worry about my friends dying at the parties. You do. Now I'd like you to hear from my friend Summer Stephan, the district attorney for the county of San Diego. Let's hear what she has to say about fentanyl.
The drug dealer is not what you might think of. So many kids that we've dealt with their families have purchased what they thought was a Xanax or a Percocet online, on social media, on Snapchat. That person is still a dealer who doesn't care about you. They care about the profits. No matter what you're told, it isn't safe, because fentanyl is not like any other drug we've experienced before. Peer pressure is absolutely real and nothing to be underestimated, nothing to be ashamed of. We all feel peer pressure. But the issue with fentanyl is that it is inside something that looks like Percocet, like Oxycontin, like Xanax, Adderall, ecstasy, all the things that kids are not afraid of. But now comes fentanyl, and we know for a fact that the DEA has seized millions of pills. 6 out of 10 have a deadly dose of fentanyl. Even if it looks like exactly like something you got from the pharmacy or doctor, it is going to have fentanyl in it. So when you look at it as a life or death decision, not just for yourself, but for your friends around you, then hopefully that will overcome the peer pressure. What you need to do is establish a safe word with someone you trust. Use this safe word by pretending you need to text. And that text basically says, I like apples, for mom pick me up. The situation is not comfortable. Now for parents, no questions asked. You have to come and get your child out of this peer pressure situation, because this is not time for judgment or for second guessing. This is a life-saving moment. But if it isn't the parent, or the parent is not appropriate for that circumstance, then maybe it is a friend that's with you. So both of you have a pact that you're going to help each other out, and you're going to create an emergency to leave that situation together. It's okay to just say no. I'm not into it. I have a game, I have a test in the morning. I've got something my mom needs me to do. I need to drive my car. Maybe just practice that, and practice saying it without making the other parties there feel terrible about themselves, but that's your choice and you're comfortable with it. Now, many of the cases where kids have lost their lives at such a young age, they wanted to take a shortcut to get that Xanax, that anxiety pill, so they can just have a good night's sleep. They thought they were getting something that's going to help them with the loneliness, with depression, the pressures of getting into college, getting good grades, being on a team. It turned out to be fentanyl. So what I would advise is talk to someone. It's very natural to feel these pressures. Seek treatment, seek different forms that are healthy, because we want you to be around and your family wants you to be around.
We're fortunate today to have a medicine which saves many people from opioid overdoses. It's called naloxone, or Narcan. When given to someone who's suffering an opioid overdose, it counteracts the drugs for a few minutes, maybe giving that person a chance to survive long enough for the paramedics to arrive. Sadly, fentanyl is so powerful that sometimes it takes many doses of Narcan and the person still passes away. Narcan is similar to having a fire extinguisher. It might stop a fire and it might not. But having Narcan is never going to make it safe to use fentanyl. In California and in many other states, we have what are called Good Samaritan laws. If you're ever at a party or a park or anywhere where you suspect someone might be suffering an overdose, please call 911. You won't be arrested and you'll give that person a chance to live. Do not abandon them. Incredibly, as dangerous as fentanyl already is, the drug dealers are making it even more lethal. Across our country, fentanyl is being mixed with xylazine, a synthetic horse tranquilizer. Think about that. And Narcan won't work on xylazine. I want to hear again from my friend Jen Harmon, director of the San Diego County Sheriff Regional Crime Lab. Jen knows much more than I do about fentanyl.
This is singly one of the most potent opioids that exists. Fentanyl was actually manufactured by a pharmaceutical company in the 1950s and 60s. It's used routinely in hospitals as an anesthetic. It's used for burn patients and for cancer patients. But that's not what is on the street.
My name is Chelsea Carter. I'm supervising criminalist of the forensic chemistry unit here at the crime lab. One of our biggest problems right now is the fentanyl epidemic, and we see that most commonly in counterfeit prescription pills. And the most common one we see are blue M30s. What I'll end up doing, because all the pills look similar in size, shape, and color and markings, is I'll take one of these pills as a representative sample and test that one pill. So I took a small portion of that pill and I crushed it up into this vial, and I've used chemicals to help pull the drug material out of the pill and test to find out what's inside.
And I think the scariest thing for me as a toxicologist and as a parent is the real toxicity of this drug. This is singly one of the most potent opioids that exists. There's numerous forms that it comes in, and if you're accessing illicit narcotics, you may not know that you're actually getting fentanyl. Not only is there a risk to overdose, but there's a very high risk to addiction and dependence related to this drug. I don't want my kids anywhere near this stuff.
As bad and scary as the situation today is, it's just going to get worse. The drug dealers are not going to stop inventing newer and more dangerous drugs to sell to you and your friends. Sadly, maybe when you're a parent someday like I am, you also will be terrified when you know what's being offered to your kids. But you know what? There is a solution. You are that solution. You can stop all of this if you choose to respect yourselves and your talents and your dreams and your potential in life. You get one mind, one heart, one body, and one life. Remember, none of us knows what drugs will do to us before we start using. You choose your futures. As I wrap up this series, I want to offer you a question. And it's a question that you can only answer for yourself. What future do you choose? Are you going to make the choices every day that hopefully take you to a future where you bring pride and love and joy to your homes and families? Or are you going to make the opposite choices, the obviously dangerous choices that might very well take you to a future where you bring pain and sadness and sorrow to your homes and families? Those choices will always be in your hands, and the focus of this series has been to give you the tools to help you make the right ones. Two, three.